Lianorn is getting support in set 10. With the introduction of the mask units and new support for that style of play, I figured why not take this time to showcase the Grand March of Full Bloom Lianorn deck I've been playing for set 8. Now at the time that I'm making this video, set 9 is in the middle of its pre-sales, and with the introduction of all the new support for Lianorn masks basically revealed, I figured why not have this opportunity to showcase to you guys the Lianorn deck that I've been playing. I've had a lot of fun with this deck, and I definitely think I've taken a unique stance to it based off my own style of play, the way I like to approach the deck, and some of the flaws that I found in Lianorn itself. Now without further ado, you guys, we'll go ahead and hop on over to camera 2 and get this deck profile started. To start this video off, I'm going to go ahead and showcase my ride deck for Lianorn first, and for her I am playing the Zorga ride line. In this deck, I play a total of 7 order cards, which is a lot of order cards to obviously filter through. I wanted to use the Ranker Chain and the Black Tier Husk Dragons to really help with the resource management of Lianorn, because all of the order cards I play in this deck are extremely great. I have one for aggro, one for pressure, and then one for card advantage. All my order cards help in some aspect that Lianorn needs to make the deck consistent against any matchup that I play. Ranker Chain, everyone knows what this does. You Soul Blast 1, you drop an order card and draw 2. Tier Husk Dragon, you pick an order card from your drop zone that is a normal order, and you get it bounced back to your hand. This way, when you go into your Lianorn turn, you have fodder for discard, and you have pieces that can help you, because the order cards in Stoic are insanely strong at this point, or you have pieces that can help you get everything you needed done. Making her debut on the channel, I have 3 copies of Grand March of Full Bloom Lianorn. Lianorn has the following effect of act Vanguard Circle once per turn, counterblast 1, draw a card, choose a card from your hand and call it to rearguard circle or discard it. Auto Vanguard Circle, when this unit attacks, Soul Blast 1 and discard a card from your hand. And boost this unit with all your back row standing units with boost. If you boost this unit with 3 or more units, this unit gets drive +1 until the end of that battle. And at the end of that battle, choose 2 of your back row rear guards and stand them. Lianorn is an easy powerhouse card. Taking 3 grade 1 units to have the normal base power of 8,000 adding to her makes this card an automatic 37,000 to your opponent's Vanguard. Any additional effects that get added on top of that just make this card a lot stronger as well. And a lot of our grade 1s that exist within this deck do have additional power-up skills that we're going to discuss later. So Lianorn easily within this deck hits above 38,000, which is a magic number in Overdress. Lianorn's first ability to counterblast 1 and draw a card is actually extremely helpful for the deck as well. This is an extending skill that she has to help you filter out your deck for more of your grade 1 pieces that you might be playing to get them onto the board and assist in filtering out your hand for persona rides, order cards, and other reliant pieces you might need for your battle formation. Her biggest problem that I've noticed in terms of building with her is that while this skill is extremely powerful, unfortunately it's not an individual win condition. Yes, 3 drive checks and restanding 2 of your back row rear guards are strong because it means that you're going to have 2 high powered attacks next, but it doesn't add multi-attack, and she doesn't get any other benefit like criticals or restanding or anything else like the other Vanguards of this current meta do, and I think that's something that just really holds her back. The Persona Ride is extremely helpful because it makes every single attack you swing with that goes left and right when you restand with your back row rear guards at full power, but unfortunately without the addition of that win condition or a card that can help her push to win, then that's been the biggest thing holding her back. However, with the addition of this new card that I put into the deck, it has really changed the way I've played it. With that being said, I am playing 4 copies of Roaming Prison Dragon with Lianorn. Now, Roaming Prison Dragon has an amazing effect which reads as followed. Auto Drop Zone. When you play a normal order, you may call this card to rearguard circle. If you call this card, perform one of the following. If it was Alchemagic, perform all of the following instead. First, this unit gets power plus 10,000 until the end of turn. Second, this unit gets critical +1 until end of turn. Now, Roaming Prison Dragon gives Lianorn something that I stated earlier that this deck was missing, a win condition. The dragon gets a free critical and it gets free power at any period in the game that you call it. And because you play a high amount of orders in this that are different grades, you can utilize the dragon at any point in time of the game that you play in order. So for example, if we are on grade 1 and we want to rush, we can drop our grade 1 order card, play the dragon with the critical, and start stacking power with our order cards and our trigger effects onto the dragon and make it scary. This is how you get extra bodies onto the board if you're playing against any form of control matchup, and how you also rush against your opponent with the dragon. because in the early game with the dragon, the critical benefit is really strong. Later in the game, the power up, you might need that to just start making magic numbers against your opponent. And then towards the Persona Ride turns, when you use the order with this, stacking extra power and trigger effects with Lianorn's drive check ability and restanding the grade 1 back row units as well as the Resonance Dragon makes your Prison Dragon just a little bit scarier. Because even though it won't be the highest number, this is a 15,000 power or 25,000 power critical attack that they have to consistently worry about heading towards them. For my final grade 3, I am playing 3 copies of Resonance Dragon. Resonance Dragon has the following effect of continuous rearguard circle. If your unit boosted a total of 3 or more times this turn, this unit gets power plus 5,000. Auto rearguard circle. At the end of the battle, if this unit attacked a Vanguard, if you have a Vanguard with Lianorn in its card name, and your units boosted a total of 5 or more times this turn, counterblast 1 and put this unit into Soul. Choose one of your rearguards and stand it. I have honestly a love-hate relationship with this card. I like what the card does. The first effect is fine, that 5k power is perfectly fine because you're just going to make this a magic number against anything you go with because all of your boosters have some sort of power up effect or some on-hit effect that you're going to want the extra power to push. But it's the second skill that I don't understand. Why is it worded like that? This card is already locked into Lianorn and you already have a counterblast cost on it and it takes itself off the board, but the locked into boosting 5 times or more is what really hurts this card in any other Lianorn deck. Going into my grade 1s, I play 4 copies of Custodial Dragon. This is your typical D-Series perfect guard, there's not much to say about it, but the reason why I'm playing 4 of the grade 1 PG instead of like 3 of this and like 1 Elementaria, I'm playing 4 of these for the simple fact that in case you're ever in a horrible situation where you need to get another grade 1 body on board, you don't have to worry about having the copy of that Elementaria in your hand that can't transition onto the field to boost your Lianorn. I've only ever been in one situation where I've had to do that, but it was like we were super into the late game and at that point it was just maintaining tempo. So you don't ever want to be in a situation where you just can't call something to that back row to make a number, and if you don't want to call triggers, calling these is actually better. For my next grade 1, I play 4 copies of Performing Petal Dianthia. Performing Petal Dianthia has the following effect of auto, when this unit is placed on rearguard circle from hand, if your Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, counterblast 1. Choose a grade 3 or less card from your drop and call it to the rearguard circle. Continuous rearguard circle. During your turn, if you have 2 or more grade 1 or less rearguards, this unit gets power plus 5,000. First thing I want to note, this card did unfortunately get errataed. They have changed the continuous skill to, instead of having 2 grade 1s, it is now you have to have 2 grade 1s in the back row, which does make this card, honestly, the power up skill a little bad. It makes it fine in the later game, but in the early game, you can't do the rush with it like you used to. So that does hurt the deck a little bit in terms of power up, but it's okay. The first skill is really what we play this for. Calling out those other units onto the field to get those extra bodies on board to make up for Lianorn's skill of getting those 3 grade 1 boosters or lower in the back row is super important. And you always want to make sure that you can have a full board to attack with, as unfortunately Lianorn not being able to do anything else besides getting extra power and the initial drive check, you are going to need a full formation to maintain the tempo of attacking with Lianorn every single turn. This card does that, and the fact that it turns itself into a magic number means that this card is also great at being a strong booster for your rear guards or your prison dragon, or being a strong attacker if you need to go that route as well. Honestly, a staple for Lianorn. I don't even think when we get the new Lianorn mask, this card is going to be reduced. If anything, I can see the argument of taking out 1 to play like maybe a tech piece or something, but I truly do believe that this card is a staple to the Lianorn strategy, as getting those cards you're going to be soul blasting out or just retiring via other card effects that you may or may not choose to play is going to be super important. For my next grade 1, I'm playing 2 copies of Marching Debut Purite. She has the following skill of continuous rearguard circle. During your turn, if you have 3 or more grade 1 or less rearguards, this unit gets power plus 5,000. Her continuous skill is just a basic power up skill. This is how you rush in the early game against decks like Ava, Chronojet, Arcite, because you can drop her down in the early game with your Dianthia and use your other skills or just other grade 1s that you have in hand to start rushing at your opponent and turn this card into a magic number. It worked really great when you're going second. It's also a strong boost in the later game, and it has a very simple skill as well. For my next grade 1, I am playing 2 copies of Seabreeze Abduction. Seabreeze Abduction has the following effect. Auto rearguard circle. When the attack this unit boosted hits a Vanguard, cost. Bind an order card from your drop. Choose an order card from your drop and put it into your hand. Now, as I've stated earlier in the video, our win condition is taking our roaming prison dragon with the critical benefit, using resonance to restand it, and stacking triggers and effects onto it. So in order to get prison dragon out to even trigger its effect, it does have to be called out from the drop zone with its ability, and then you choose one of the skills to pick from. That means that if we want to make sure that this strategy happens as consistently as possible, we are going to need to make sure that we can play a cheap order every single turn that does not interfere with our other card effect. Being able to make sure that we always have access to our prison dragons every single turn to either rush or apply pressure is extremely important to making sure that Lianorn can maintain its tempo and consistency and power. This card is just great for that. It's an on-hit pressure card as well, which means that your opponent does have to think about this when they guard against it. And it makes Lianorn's attack not as free because you'll have 2 opportunities to do that depending on the placement of this unit. For my last grade 1 and a tech piece, I am playing 1 copy of Stepping Calyx Salvia. She has the following effect of auto, when this unit is placed in the rearguard circle, if your Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, you may call a plant token to rearguard circle. I am playing Stepping Calyx Salvia because while the meta is changing for Lianorn, if you face against any deck that has any form of super strong control, like we're talking retiring 3 or more units a turn, that is going to hurt the deck. However, if you use this card with Dianthia or any of your order cards to superior call this card out, you essentially get 2 bodies on the board. Calyx will call out a plant token which has the ability to boost, so this card with 1 other card from your hand automatically set up your Lianorn, and at that point it's just figuring out your front row. Moving on to my triggers, I am playing 8 criticals with 4 copies of Melodia Palmera, and I am playing 4 copies of Aspiring Maiden Elana. This deck does need your 8 criticals. You need to see your critical pieces to stack power and pressure in the early game, and you need your critical pieces to make that dragon just a lot scarier. If your opponent's at 2 damage, you hit a critical trigger and you apply everything onto your Vanguard and your dragon, your opponent already has to deal with now additional critical attack coming their way. Critical triggers that move it themselves into the soul, these are mandatory for Lianorn. Lianorn, in case you're in that very rare situation where you don't get Persona Ride or you just don't have any way of generating that extra soul because you haven't been using your Resonance Dragons or anything, you're going to want some way of doing that. And the fact that this card is just another boost option that adds power as well means that sometimes it's even good to rush with this in the early game when you're on those Prison Dragons early to make that later game pressure you have just a little bit scarier and a little bit easier in terms of how much you have to commit to threaten your opponent. Next trigger is 1 copy of the Stoicheia Over Trigger, Source Dragon Deity of Blessings, Bless Favor. It's an over trigger, it does over trigger things. For my next trigger, I am playing 3 copies of Serene Maiden Lena. Draw triggers are great for Lianorn, and I do feel like they are needed. This deck is very piece reliant. You do need to see orders, you do need to see Sea Breezes, you do need to see Prison Dragons, you need to see Resonance. So having any form of extra draw to add to our hand is extremely helpful for the deck. Finally, for my triggers, I'm playing 4 copies of Elegy Pixie. This is honestly my favorite Stoicheia heal trigger. I like this and the Stag as the best. I didn't like the little elf thingy that was playing the flute. I didn't care for it, and that card honestly hated me because I would always open up my hands with at least 2 of her. This card is fair to me and I don't see it as much. I'm gonna go ahead and showcase my order cards first. So we have 3 copies of Gather Upon Me, Ye Wandering Souls. Now, if you don't know what this card does, it has the following effect of play this with discard an order card from your hand. Choose one of your Vanguards and it gets drive +1 until end of turn. Drive checking additional cards with Lianorn's effect to gain additional drive check is extremely helpful for this deck. Not only are you filtering out order cards that essentially are like other grade 3s in the deck because they don't have shield, but you're also drawing cards that may activate as triggers, which will power up your Prison Dragon. This also helps you filter out your deck for other pieces, and sometimes these order cards that I'm going to showcase besides this one aren't always effective. So when an order card becomes dead because Lianorn's resource management is not the best, then this card just makes that useful. You don't have any card in this deck that actually becomes dead, they just become situational, and that makes this just so much better. I really do think that this is super strong, and this is honestly something that got put on by watching a Japanese deck list play this out, and it made a lot of sense to me when I thought about it. I wanted to give it a try, and I've honestly loved it ever since. The additional drive check on top of Lianorn's extra drive check means extra triggers, higher powered attacks, and filtering out your hand for better cards. For my next order, I am playing 2 copies of Happy Dreaming Fiesta. This order card has the effect of, if you have a Vanguard with Lianorn in his card name, play this with Counterblast 1. Look at the top 7 cards of your deck, choose up to 2 grade 1 or less unit cards, call them to rearguard circle, and shuffle your deck. This order card essentially gives you a free board. So any form of control matchup that you play against, or if your hand just isn't agreeing with you, when you see this card, you are able to automatically set up your board with Lianorn. While you do have to drop 1 extra piece to really get the full board if this is the only card you have dropped with no rear guards, this is a piece that for 1 counterblast does way better than what your Lianorn effect does, and helps you search out your other grade 1 pieces that might assist you in whatever situation you're in. You're also thinning your deck out by 2 cards, which increases your chance of seeing extra triggers and filtering out for those key pieces you need when they call to rear guard. Now for my last order card, and honestly a spicy tech that I've discovered myself that I like, is 2 copies of In Search of an Ideal Far Away. Now if you guys don't know what this does, it has the following effect of, choose one of your units, and until the end of the turn, it gets auto, Vanguard / rearguard circle. When your other unit attacks, this unit gets power plus 5,000 until the end of turn. This card in the early game with our win condition is insane. What this does is it turns any column that you have with this into a high powered attacker. So anything that you choose in the back row along with your Resonance Dragon, or even in the early game of grade 1 or 2, when you're going second, or if you're going first when you're on grade 2 turn, makes your rearguard column that this card is in when it's boosting or attacking insanely strong. And getting 5,000 power, especially with this, on your Lianorn turns you don't have any resources, is extremely powerful as well. You can honestly boost up any card via this effect by plus 15,000, and then all of our grade 1s, because you'll usually be using this on a grade 1, will have a power up skill usually of their own to get another 5k. So it becomes a 20,000 point booster on top of having an 8k base, meaning any unit you call behind it will automatically become a magic number that get past 33,000. Lianorn is a very fun deck, and this style of play that I've taken with the roaming prison dragons, the orders, has definitely fixed the major flaw of Lianorn, which is the fact that the deck never had a solid win condition. But with these order cards, the prison dragon, as well as Lianorn being a centric vanguard, with the addition of all the other cards that I applied, I really have been enjoying this style of play with the deck. Taking advantage of Lianorn's skill, then using your O Ye Wandering Souls, get an extra drive check, and calling out the Prison Dragon with the critical on Persona ride turns is extremely powerful, and you can dictate which route you want to go depending on the tempo of the game. The cards added to my Lianorn deck add a lot of versatility to it. You have a better grade 1 rush turn than you did prior, you have extra card advantage, and you can have more tempo control in the game than you do with the generic Lianorn list. While I do think that the Resonance Dragon into the Creed Assault is the most consistent variation of the build without the need of the other order cards, I do believe that my variation of the deck has a little bit more pressure added to it because you have the guarantee of the critical to your Prison Dragon than you do with Creed Assault. And while you don't have the benefit of getting the highest amount of power unlike Creed Assault does, you do have the extra pressure that your Prison Dragon gives you at any period in the game. Whereas Creed Assault doesn't really get to go full aggro until you're on the Lianorn turn just because of the card's restriction. That concludes today's video, guys. I hope to see you around, and I'll catch you later. Peace.